Welcome to Sky Notes. May's astrology is a tad intense. 2 full moons opening and closing the month, and plenty happening in between. Stick around, Tracy and Lillian have oracle messages for each sign, so join us while we check our Sky Notes. Hi Lillian, hi everybody, welcome to Sky Notes. We're going to look at the astrology of May today, right?
That's right. I've been looking forward to this.
I mean, I thought April was a wild month, but there's some really interesting things happening this month that we're going to get to talk about. So it's full, so we should probably just jump right in, right?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't even like debrief on the moon story of the month, which is to me the biggest story, right?
Yeah.
Would you say that's true?
The start and finish and a little bit in between.
And the thing in the middle, right?
So
we get a blue moon this month, and if people don't know what a blue moon is, it's 2 full moons in a month. What I did not know is they're pretty regular, like every 2.5 to 3 years. So I knew they were more regular than they, people say, but that is pretty regular. That's a sign change for things like Ceres and Mars, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first one is happening like it happened today.
Yeah.
So May 1st at 11:22 a.m. here. So that would have been at 1:22 p.m. where you are. Yeah. And that's in Scorpio. So let's look at that chart.
I got to say, this is reminiscent. I feel like pulling out of last month really is a lot about how Aries was engaged last month. And as we talked about, Mars had to go by Neptune before it got to Saturn. And now I feel like Mars is just going, here's all the stuff I found.
Well, okay. So here's the other piece of that, right? So we had Mars go into its own sign of Aries with everything in Aries. So that's like a double acceleration, right?
Yes.
It's like buying a car with an extra accelerator in it.
Interesting. Yeah.
And everything was going direct. All of the planets were direct. And I always find, I don't know if you noticed this too, but for me, time goes very fast when all the planets are direct. Did you feel that as well?
I did. I feel like I've got real time blindness. So, yeah.
That's fair. I just really felt like we were at warp speed. Now, I was productive as hell. I've had times when everything's direct and everything's going fast, but I don't feel like I got anything done. That was not the case this time. So that was nice. Right. But we definitely had this double whammy of very fast moving, feeling almost aggressively fast at times.
I felt the weight of that, right? Like I totally know what you're talking about in the sense of things having to speed up. And so the emotional components kind of get left to the side because it's not going to work. You're not going to get anything out of that. And so then there's that tension that starts to wobble where it's like, you have to deal with the emotions at some point. That's the whole, God damn it, of the whole thing. Pardon my language, but that's it. So I feel like now is part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and so the interesting thing that I heard, let's get back to this chart and let's talk about it in context of that, right? So we've heard in the past week, I have heard a lot about how, Scorpio full moon, we get one a year, and so it's the brightest moon in the deepest emotional sign, let's say. Now, the thing that's cool about this chart is look at where that moon is down at the bottom, right?
Yeah.
And so to me, a full moon is about shining light on what we've been building. And having it down there in the deepest part of the chart in one of the most intense signs, which is often Scorpio has a lot of energy around our buried emotions and the tendency to hold on, right? So this to me says we're getting this big light shone on our shit.
Yeah.
And we don't get to ignore it. What do you think?
I agree. And that the best next step is to be accountable. And I've often tried to look at wounds or irritations, I guess is an easier way to say, as diagnostic of some process that I'm trying to surface. And let me tell you, somebody bald-faced telling you to your face what you've done wrong and being accurate enough for you to have to say, you know what, you got it, you nailed it, is super challenging, super vulnerable. And so we're in the time of the sun in Taurus, and Venus is now in Gemini. I don't know. I'm starting to think about like what happens when you're soothing things versus having to be really direct about things. There's something about that interplay I'm still thinking about, the
Right.
Venus-Mars interplay.
Yeah, right. Well, and this, like when I think about just even where the sun is in this chart, this is a day chart. It's down at the bottom, at the very bottom, and the sun is up there in the ninth house. So there's something about our ideologies, our belief systems, our, higher thinking that is part of this equation with this full moon that's sort of lighting up the underbelly of that, I would say, lighting up the corruption, the rot at that's sitting underneath all of that. Would you agree with that?
I would, and then I would turn to my standard idea, which is you dream up the solutions, which going back to wounds as diagnostic, the reason why that works is because I know I've said it before for myself personally, but if I get mad, when I get mad, it is never about something current. I have a set of things that set me off. And you've certainly seen that where it's like, and then off she goes kind of thing. And I feel like there's a part of that that's like really healthy and is about metabolizing emotion, right? So some of this could be about erupting that emotion, but outside of that whole Aries slam, interception. So, and then I guess I would say the interplay between Venus and Mars now feels like Venus is talking, right? Venus is communicating. And so it may be something where we're getting, I don't know, Venus's projection of Mars, or I can't imagine Mars whispering in her ear and then her walking around and talking to folks about it. So it feels like it's going to come from her,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's interesting. She's exactly sextile Saturn. So there's quite a story there too, and it's an opportunity. Sextile is always an opportunity that we can, I mean, I don't want to say exploit in any kind of a negative way, but take advantage of in a positive way. So materializing some kind of idea that Venus has is a potential. But one of the things that I wanted to say right away about it was that the month is opening with a waxing gibbous moon. And so, I mean, it's not just this moment that we're going to feel that. We have all month this anticipatory feeling, this may be a bit of anxiety, this feeling like we're pressed for time and we have to get stuff done. So that sort of carries on through the whole month because of the way we started out,
I love that.
So, yeah, and that intensity of that waxing gibbous moon is we're not going to be able to shake it like we normally can because we have a bit of a stamp. It stamped us for the month.
Yeah, that's what I wrote down. I think what's interesting is you can ride that wave, and if you haven't been able to get traction, you can get traction. But then that automatically brings up what you've said before with where there's so much moon, there's not a lot of stability. And if we're book-ended on each side with a full moon and a new moon in the middle, that's a lot of intensity around the moon.
Right. Well, and, so we have this huge lunar story for the whole month. And then Jupiter is in Cancer being ruled by the moon. So so that actually takes what would normally be something interesting to talk about with the moon cycles and makes it like it's going to be loud. Jupiter's going to make all of the things that the moon is doing this month, and well, until it gets out of Cancer, really, but we're talking about May, it's going to make everything much bigger. And, the potential for positive growth or something that we don't want to grow is there this month.
That gets bad slowly and then gets bad quickly.
Yeah.
That's a Jupiter thing, right?
Well, and I love what you said too about Mars, because the planets we have, everybody's talking to Mars at some point this month. And so back to what we were saying with April and everything feeling really fast, we're going to have to be really self-connected and paying attention to our own energy levels, because when Mars is, it's going to talk to Jupiter on the 4th. And that always is a time when we don't know our own limits, or the potential. It's going to square Mercury on one of those days. I can't remember. And then it's also going to square Pluto at the end of the month. So we've got a lot of this like conflict and tension when it comes to Mars. And that is, we're going to be dealing with that off and on all month. And all of those things are when Mars has these, I don't know, tough conversations with the other planets, it tends to spark stuff that, you can feel a little bit out of control of. So, center yourself, kind of make sure you've got the energy to take stuff on.
Well, and there'll be interruptions to this energy that we'll talk about later, that although they're interruptions and a pain in the ass, could be an asset this month. Because I think the other piece is stepping down from that rush of having all of the planets direct and being more embodied, which is any brain will tell you, very boring place for a brain to be.
Yes. And thank goodness though, because one of the first things, bigger things that we have happening is Pluto's going to go retrograde on the 6th, right? So the only other thing I wanted to bring up about this chart before we move on is the Mercury in Aries is conjunct Chiron in Aries. It's hidden by the marking on there. But you and I talked about this in our planning meeting, how all of the things that are leaving Aries have to have their last conversation with Chiron before they go. And it's the last time they do this for 50 some years, right? In this particular thing. So there are doors closing, chapters closing, wounds healing. We're moving on and past some of these Chironic themes. And this conversation, I think it's probably going to amp up for the next 6 months as Chiron is still like in and out of Aries and Taurus. But that idea of selfishness, self-reliance versus being lonely and feeling like you're doing everything by yourself. And those stories. What other Chiron and Aries stories can you see?
Well, the insecurity around the body, feeling like you have to be a certain way. I'm trying to think. I have heard tale of folks who have an Aries sun and Chiron Aries, and they are super gentle or present super gentle. And that is a shock to me. Doesn't seem to be most helpful for an Aries vibe. So that notion of where the compassion lands, right? And whether or not you're able to take it, or whether or not there's just sitting in the rejection, right, of oneself. And that's a terrible place to be. And these meat suits are especially conducive of genuine criticism. So you can do it, but go take a walk.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what shifts once Chiron goes into Taurus, but we're kind of the hints of what were the doors that we're closing. We'll see some of that this month just because of, the sun, especially having had a conversation with Chiron last month, and then these other ones sort of finishing off their business, we'll start to see some things wrapping up.
Right. And I think that the Mercury will help metabolize it. Right. And then of course the Mars will kind of blow it up. But I want to clarify, like when I said the thing about Chiron and Aries in particular, when I think about folks with Chiron and Aries, I'm trying to imagine what that experience is like. And I've actually seen, and this is where I haven't quite put my ability to articulate it together for this idea, but it's something like I've heard the coolest ownership of inner authority from Chiron and Aries recently. You know what I mean? And I've also heard like the coolest ownership of you did me wrong or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it's very interesting, the flavors that are coming up. I don't know that they're different, but it's a different quality. And I'm not sure what, like I said, I'll think about it more to get a line on it. But there's something going on where we're getting to see really unusual skill. And then that skill's being challenged on top of it.
Right, right. Well, and the thing, probably this past 4 or 5 years with Chiron and Aries, the most enlightening, surprising thing to me has been this rise of attention being paid to Gen X, and especially the Aries themes around Gen X, right?
Yeah.
And I think the themes that people identify Gen X for are very much wrapped up in Chiron and Aries. I think that, you know, the latchkey kids, the forced independence, the, you know, being this sort of loner collective, right, that's smaller than everybody else, and
right, but like garage bands, right,
mm-hmm.
and scenes, and like wildly creative,
rebellious,
yeah,
that to me is so much more wrapped up in Chiron and Aries than Uranus in Libra or Pluto in Virgo.
I buy that.
Yeah.
I buy that. Yeah.
So I found as Chiron's gotten closer to the end of Aries, that has all gotten louder. So I think that'll continue until it actually changes signs. We're going to see Gen X get even louder and people get even more, you know, pissed off at them. Yeah, that's the word. That's a much nicer way to say it. Yeah, I think that we're definitely going to see that as a thing for the next few months for sure. And the reason I bring it up is because of this relationship, like Mercury's going to give it voice right now.
Exactly.
In this full moon chart.
Right.
And the moon is there to light up the darkest in Scorpio, the darkest side of that.
Yeah.
You know, that Mars is in Aries and in charge of that moon. So they're all working together to sort of bring that all to the surface. So that's an interesting signature in this chart for sure. And it won't, it's not a blip. It's not a blip. It's kind of my point. Yeah.
And you would think that, I mean, it makes sense, right? Like, when I think about what's happening around the world right now, I think about how Saudi Arabia put a ton of solar panels out in the desert. And, you know, people are kind of mixing and matching these, like I was saying, skills or resources. And the truth is sometimes you need to go deep in the muck to see what, maybe something's broken down there, right? You know, maybe it's not massive, meant to hurt. It's a pointer. It's a thing. You got to kind of sit with it. And because it's heavy, I think it is good to keep in mind you don't have to apply the speed to processing. You can follow the wave of Mercury going by Chiron, and it will come out. And then the wave of Mars by Chiron, and it will come out. And so there are ways it will metabolize that won't take a lot of effort on our part.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I like that. And so should we, I mean, we're just going to very gently touch on Pluto. We just want to talk about how it is going to go retrograde on May 6th. And it will be retrograde until October 15th. So this is the first retrograde of Pluto in Aquarius while all the outers are in their new sign.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is a different flavor to this for sure. It is going to, I think it'll be a welcome slowdown, you know, when we won't have everything moving direct, which I think it'll be good. I hope.
This is so funny. I'm getting a hot flash. And the image I had of this Pluto going retrograde, I swear to you, was of a parachute opening up to slow down a race car. And then the flames shooting, and then like somehow the car finally stops. Right. So I just didn't get a sense of like, oh, it's really going to be a relief.
Right. No, I know I'm lying to myself. Okay, fine.
I mean, I think the one thing that we can't emphasize enough is this is a season of vigor. Get in your body, enjoy it. Have pleasure.
You know, I have to say, I love that we've got the sun in Taurus right now. And then also like Mercury goes into Taurus not that long from now, right?
Yes, Saturday night.
So right away. That's why I didn't see it, because I didn't look close enough to today. Tomorrow, it's going to go. Yeah, right. Yeah. So we're getting more of that earth energy and less of the air. So I think that'll be really helpful for keeping people centered and also slowing down. I think that with everything in air, like Uranus and air, and Pluto, and then all the signs had gone through air. Our minds have been busy for months, and so this going into Taurus is gonna slow it down. But this is the thing that's so interesting, is that so Mercury is only going to be in Taurus for 15 days.
Oof.
It was in Pisces for 10 weeks.
Oh,
Like
sorry.
right, to me, we all deserve some kind of like a brownie badge or something for
I
surviving 10
agree.
weeks of Mercury and Pisces, in my
Yeah, I
opinion.
agree. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is going to be a real short jaunt before it moves into its own sign. So
Mhm.
we get 2 weeks of our mind kind of getting a bit of a rest
I
before it
love it though.
amps up to 1,000, because in it's going to go and join Uranus right off the bat. So that's happening. So we've got Mercury changing, and then we've got Pluto going retrograde. And is there anything else before the middle of the month that you wanted to bring up?
Well, why don't we start talking about those void of courses that we were
Okay.
discussing? And yeah, these were, I would frame them and then you can let me know what you think or how you would change what I say. They're kind of interruptions in the schedule. In the chart, what they represent is it's the last aspect has separated before before the ingress into a new sign for the moon.
Yep.
And so they can be quite short. They can happen at night. You know, there's a bunch of ways where they can be ineffective. So what we did is took a look at what we thought would be the most impactful ones. And the expectation is there's not a lot of focus. It's difficult to finish something. I think you said, and I loved it, if you want to finish something you never want to see again, finish it during a void of course. So the first ones are the 4th and 5th of May. And then the second one is that 7th.
Right.
So
right.
that second week, you know, we get 2 events. And then that second week, sorry.
The first one is actually tomorrow, the second.
You're right. You're right.
So we have the full day tomorrow is a void of course
Right.
the entire day. And so, yeah, it's, I don't know. When you're trying to work on stuff, I find it almost impossible to just get any kind of momentum. It's not always about focus. Sometimes it's about like actually just getting something to stick.
Like traction.
Right? Yeah. Some traction. That's a good word. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, tomorrow is do something you never want to see again day, for sure.
So take out the garbage, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Donate stuff.
Good purging. Yeah, absolutely.
To a charity. Yeah, that kind of thing.
For sure. And then so the 2nd, the 4th and 5th, and then we move on to the 12th, which is, so I picked the ones that was like literally the entire work day.
Yeah, that's handy.
Taken up by a void of course, right? So the 12th is another one of those days we have a void all day long.
Yep.
And that's a regular work day for people. And then I also came up with the 20th is a fully the day that the sun actually moves into Gemini.
Yeah.
It's a fully void of course moon. And then the last one is the 27th, which is the entire day. Yep, 5:30 a.m. between 5:30 a.m. and 6:52 p.m. It's the whole day.
And I mentioned the 17th and the 18th, which we're going to talk about for other reasons, right?
Yeah,
but it is also a void of course. So the accumulation, all that we were discussing just now, there you go. You've got a rhythm. Yeah. It's not going to be let's go all month. It's going to be let's go. Hold on a second. I need lunch. Let's go. Did I make sure to check this? And sort of when do we expect the next interruption? So it's a very different cadence.
Yes. Yeah, it is. And it is, now that you brought that up, it is a nice built-in sort of stopgap between this, what feels like a freight train of stuff. Energetically, right?
Well, everything feels powerful right now. It's like we're handling dangerous objects. Like I just keep feeling, I wrote down yesterday, unintended consequences, you know, and how useless it is to say like, oh, but I didn't mean to do that kind of thing, you know, like, oh,
yeah.
So there's like this care and this tenderness kind of welling up.
And then we actually, the 10th to the 16th is pretty quiet.
I got that too. Yeah.
Right. We've got a Mercury cazimi on the 14th.
Mm-hmm.
Probably a nothing sandwich, unless it's, in your own chart. It's aspecting something in your own chart. So that's really the biggest. Mars is going to meet up with Chiron on the Saturday, the 16th. And so that we've already talked to that a bit, the energy of that Chiron and Aries. So it's significant. Mars is going to come along. It's been ruling, Chiron through this whole time.
Right.
So there's a final conversation that they need to have with each other. And that's right smack dab in the middle of the month. But now we get to talk about the other thing happening on that day, which is the new moon.
Woohoo!
Now, here's the thing that's wild about this new moon. That is a degree, not quite a degree off of the fixed star Algol. That new moon is happening. Medusa's severed head. Yes. Now, Medusa's severed head, a symbol of overwhelming raw intensity that can't be controlled and forces a direct confrontation with what's been avoided.
Wow.
Now, if you think about that in aspect to what we just talked about with the full moon.
Yeah.
So what should feel like a bit of a restart.
Yeah.
It's
the next part of the case or the court case. How there's like, but we're not going to do sentencing until da 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 da, and you're like, the judicial system makes me insane. And this is kind of like that. There are consequences, and then consequences, and then consequences. Yeah.
I'm going to say the most aha moment I had around how patriarchy has altered our astrological stories was in learning the older version of Medusa and how she's raped, and Athena, it's blame the victim time, and Medusa gets exiled and cursed and all of that.
Right.
And so the timing of this, you think the full moon, we're digging up all that, we're shining a light on all the garbage, and then you have this very powerful story that is so in line with what's happening right now.
Right.
With, women being abused and outing each other and women against women and all this bullshit that we're talking about.
Yeah.
To have that new moon sitting on there is some kind of transformation, some kind of massive shift.
Wow. Yeah.
That kicks off at that full moon. Somebody's losing their head.
Well, that's the thing, right? That's the general gist of it, right? And I love what you said about the Medusa piece. And I'm on day 4 of the Venus reset. Y'all should go watch Stormy talking about her book coming out, and also the Venus program. And it is really different. It is really different from programs I've done before. And it is because it is so completely grounded in female power that makes a lot of sense. And so from that standpoint, there's just so much more clarity. There's ownership. There's responsibility. There's allowing things to go when they're not suitable. And that piece of it is kind of like the vibe I'd love to imbue with this time of Medusa. The fact that you even shared her story is so beautiful, right? Instead of, mean lady with a, gosh, does she have snakes in her armpit hair? It's fascinating. It's just a fascinating thing. And we're going to touch on Ceres, which really ups the ante on female stuff going on for the month.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Before we do that, so now we have Mars, we have Mars, like it's literally a minute separating from Chiron in this chart. Right. So that, again, we have another imprint of that Chiron energy that we're still trying to resolve over the next year.
Right.
So, yeah. Yeah, right. Absolutely.
And Mars, like I love to say, it's a playlist. It's dancing. It's, dancing in your chair. It's busy hands. You want to metabolize that energy to get the reward of the information that Chiron has.
And I just felt like with the amount of realizations and discoveries that we've had in the last few months about like the exploitation of women and, you know, the website with the eyelid
Oh my
tab.
gosh.
Like, come
Yeah.
on, sorry.
Yeah.
I can't even talk about that without getting just absolutely so enraged. But this is
Right.
what we're unearthing. And I think that the volume of that, and I'm talking like amount, volume of
Got it.
that much shit that's out there, I think we're not done knowing
No.
how awful it is.
Right.
And this is the, to me, we've talked a lot about the fuck around and find out
Right.
thing, you know, in the last, especially the past like year and a half. But I
Mhm.
think this is the actual finding out time. I think that actually we haven't really found out the, you know, the true
Right.
amount, the true depth, the true everything to what this story holds, but also the actual consequences of it are the thing that we're really going to start to understand,
I
right?
agree.
The
I
impact.
agree. Yeah.
And I feel like this particular new moon and the 2 full moons wrapping it up, I feel like we're on the files, Epstein files. There's like
Oh,
that can't get buried anymore.
right.
I don't know. Like I just feel like either it vanishes completely,
Right.
but we can't keep doing what we're doing. Right.
Mm-mm.
That needs that is one of the things that's going to shift with the energy of the moon this month, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah. I mean, I think I've mentioned before, one of my favorite authors is Terry Pratchett, and he talks about the rough music. And the rough music is what's called when people are basically being assholes to each other on such a scale that it can't be ignored anymore. And it's when everybody else kind of gets up and says, enough of this. So today is one of those days, May Day is a traditional workers' day. And so there are protests all across the US. Um, that notion of standing up for the civilization that you want around you is definitely something that feels like it's permeating these charts, and it can be because we're projecting it into it, but to me it really is doing what you're saying. It's calling up these energies over and over and over again. And would that we were in civilizations who knew how to metabolize it, right? And then we would have grieved, and we would have pulled our hair and shrieked into the night and made amends. And I'll say one anecdote and then I'll get back to the point. They found urns in, I think, an ancient Etruscan location that they assumed from a long time were infant sacrifices. And then they came to find out recently that it was just a horrible instance where their children died en masse. And this was their memorial to them. And it was a sacred place. And so they were trying to, there's this thing where the female and male keeps going. We're exactly alike. And the dude's like thinking one thing, and it doesn't even have to be gendered, is the point. 2 meat suits have 2 totally different ideas of what's going on. And we've gone so far beyond knowing what norms are, or what is it? My favorite one is common sense. Tell me when we've been deriving our information from common places. And now that we're at this chart, I just want to say, I watched Maurice talk about Uranus and its process, and about how, in Gemini, he wasn't talking about this because it was, I think, a 9-year-old lecture, but he was just talking about how Uranus is like lonely and it wants to get together with its peers. It's just not like everybody else, kind of thing. And so he described it really beautifully as like, so you're at an astrology conference, but then Uranus starts to notice what it needs, and Uranus criticizes the conference and the people attending the conference without understanding, like, this is just prelude to Uranus getting what it needs, which is the individuation and accommodation it needs within the society. And it was so interesting because I thought, oh boy, in Gemini, this one's really going to pack a wallop. It should be hilarious. I know we keep talking about meth parties or something every three months or so. I was trying to say there was 1 month where I was like, it could be a party. And you were like, this is not a party you're going to want to go to. This feels like just one of those parties where folks are coming out of the corners, like wiping their makeup off or something, like not from drugs, but from like these heart to hearts or
the bathroom cry,
the clashes or whatever. It's like, it's going to be like,
yeah. Before I want to speak to something you just said that has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but I want to put something into focus for me about Aquarius. I think there's somebody, I've had Aquarius astrologers say this to me about how they feel like there's almost two types of Aquarians, right? When you say that about Uranus expecting everybody to be themselves and unique and weird and all of that, I think there are two types. I think there's an Aquarius energy that wants to be unique, but everybody else needs to fit. And then there's the Aquarius energy where everybody gets to be unique in their own right. Right. And I think that's interesting because I think Pluto is teaching us some of that now while it's in there, and how the authenticity piece of that. So anyways, that's a total aside, but it kind of locked something in my brain for me. Thanks.
No, I love that. And the rebel obviously was in that statement. It's just, what's the role of the rebellion? It's to clarify what you actually want in the group. It's not to send you flying or to be exiled, although there are certainly legitimate periods where that may be a good next step,
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I've talked about this with clients before where, and often it's when talking about Saturn and Aquarius natally. Aquarius energy can be dangerous if it's a rebel, but it doesn't know what cause it's fighting for. Right. And so that's kind of the piece that I think that we're learning with the Pluto and Aquarius is it's okay to rebel, but you need to be really clear on what it is that you're fighting for.
I wonder if
it to be productive and helpful and not just hurt innocent bystanders.
Unintended consequences again.
100%. There it is.
There's a lot of that rolling around. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, this new moon it's not that fresh start in the middle of the month that we'd hope. I feel like it's more dredging up. It's like a reset from what we discovered today onwards.
Right.
Setting us up to do the full moon at the end of the month.
I believe it.
That's what it feels like that trajectory is like.
There's been a lot more burning on my end, and the one thing that I would say is for this new moon, maybe the juice is in the burn in the days preceding. So the 14th and 15th, maybe you find stuff you want to let go of and you go ahead and ritualize that. It may not go away. You may see it more clearly, but it's part of a metabolizing process.
And so it also doesn't help that with everything that you're saying, that week right after we have that new moon, it's a busy week astrologically. Right? Oh my gosh. I mean, I didn't even write them down. I'm just going to go straight off the calendar.
Yeah.
But, so Mercury is going to go into Gemini on the 17th. So that's on the Sunday. Mm-hmm. Right away, it's talking with Uranus. So that's not going to be a relaxing Sunday for anybody, just so you know.
Right.
If you write or if you love to talk, it'll be a great
fine. Yeah.
You also might short circuit because it's a lot of air energy. Mm-hmm. Nervous systems might be on fire that day for sure. The next day we have, Venus is sextile Mars, Mercury is sextile Neptune, but we also have Venus goes into Cancer that day and Mars goes into Taurus. We have like 3 ingresses in 2 days of the inner planet.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's like, we have a new moon. So, I mean, from that perspective, it will feel fresh in that way because we have a new moon and then we have this like major turnover
ingress, yeah.
Right. Right away.
But less grounded, more requiring yourself to align with your grounding because of the void, of course, because of the ingresses not being the clear information you want at the beginning of a process.
Right.
Let it unfold. Plan lighter days, right? And if you have to kind of battle through stuff, make sure you're brainstorming enough so that the things that don't work have less impact.
Right. Well, and okay, now think about this, right?
Mm-hmm.
We already talked about Neptune amplifying the moon, or
Yes.
Jupiter
Yeah.
amplifying the moon because it's being ruled by the moon in Cancer. But now we're going to have Venus also being ruled by the moon and Mars being ruled by Venus. So all of the things that the moon is doing is just going to be that much more loud.
I love the company the moon is keeping, though, right?
Okay, yes, it's nice to have those lovely planets. And I mean, but to me, whenever we get that much Cancer energy, it becomes quite nostalgic, right?
Right.
Like there's often, for me personally,
Protective.
it's my fifth house, so there's a longing for something from my past. Like it's
Mm.
often on when there's a lot of Cancer or moon energy, I always want to bake. Like there's just
Yeah.
something, it's something I did as a kid.
Yeah.
So yeah, that you might find that week that there's, especially if the world around us is pretty stressful,
Right.
a desire, you might find that week that there's, you're remembering things from your past that you're just like, oh my
Right.
God, I never even thought of that,
Yeah.
or we're just going to be way more sensitive to smells that bring memory or things like that. So there's a lot of power in working with the moon this month, but I would definitely say, setting intentions around manifesting the things you want to bring into your life. This really isn't the month for that.
Right.
With what the moon is doing.
Well, not just the moon, but the rest of the planets. They're just,
Yeah.
it's just the Gemini energy is about, I would like to look at 15 things and hand you back 14.
Right.
So do that.
Yeah. And then the next day after we have those 3 planets change signs, Mercury is going to trine Pluto and square the nodes. So that's going to be big news. Like literally Mercury doing that, likely something big will hit the news.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm being literal. And then the next day the sun moves into Gemini. So we have 4 days of like bang, 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 bang. And then we get a day off because we're going to need it. Thursday, the 21st is like, whew. But then we have the 22nd is just like the Friday is the sun meets up with Uranus now. Venus is square Neptune. I mean, we have a beautiful Venus trine the North Node. So, I mean, actually the astrology of that day is quite lovely.
Right.
But I'm going to say with Venus talking to Neptune in that way in a square, we might get confronted with some things that we have been putting a positive spin on that we likely shouldn't. There's a lot talking to us about just paying attention this month, because it seems like we're just going to be fed a lot of important information from, and you're never quite going to know where it's coming from.
Yeah. And I have to say, and this is my particular chart this year, I think is ruled by Venus. And I'm doing a Venus deep dive. For me, this period, it seems critical to understand in detail what I want, so that as I communicate, I'm giving the clearest sense to the universe of what it is that I'm going to engage with, commit to, devote to. So I'm not doing those things, but I'm starting that pathway to make sure that it's clear for when that opportunity opens up.
Perfect. I hadn't even thought of that. If it's your Venus perfection year, what a beautiful time to do that Venus reset. Hey, if it's your perfection year, that's a beautiful time to do that work with the Venus reset of stormies for sure. I love that. So that week of the 17th to the 24th is busy.
Active. Yeah.
Very busy. And I mean, to me, the sky looks quite different as we move into that next week.
Yes, exactly.
That's not a good or bad. I'm not putting any judgment on how that's going to go. It's just going to feel really different.
Yeah, exactly. And I think about the next piece, which is that Aries ingress into Gemini on Thursday, the 28th of May. And I went back to Sarah's book, and we have a great interview with her, and got that sense of, there was almost a sense of commitment to stewardship that she was describing, and a return of the feminine, and your personal engagement with that return of the feminine. And the fact that it's going into Gemini and we'll be talking to Uranus and we'll be talking to all the other planets is really, to me, front loading her role in this, this quantity of change. And, she is a caregiver who can freak out. But what we're trying to cultivate is, where can we steward? Where can we care by being curious? Where can we care by communicating, for while it's in Gemini?
Right. I love that. Well, and also, so with this Aries and Gemini thing, especially because we're in such a weird time when it comes to resources and sort of the things that some governments are doing when it comes to resources. And I always, when I think about Ceres, there's always that scarcity piece of, her story. And I think that's always an important thing to think about when you're looking at Ceres. So in Taurus, where she's been, the story about the earth and the physical resources have been a really big part of the story. Well, now it's about our mind and our communication and who's controlling and who gets to control our thoughts.
Exactly.
Right. And so that'll be really an interesting thing. I think you said that. I think I just put it in a totally different.
No, I loved what you said, because one must align, right, with the good of others to be a good steward. And so that is radically different from the things we were going through before.
Right. Yeah. I just want to say this before I forget about it. So when I was talking about that new moon in the middle of the month, some of the things that ended up coming up, themes that ended up coming up around the Medusa piece specifically, were that truth that was suppressed or punished is one of the themes.
Oh, wow.
And I thought that was really powerful. Emotional reactions that have been controlled for too long.
Wow. Yeah.
Right? I know. Yeah. And then narratives where someone was made the problem.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we are seeing so much of that with this crazy right-wing rhetoric, no matter where in the world you are.
Yeah.
Right?
It's everywhere.
Fault, it's the other country's fault, it's everybody else's freaking fault.
Right.
So that is also a place where we're going to see that shift, I think, after the new moon. So yeah, it will be interesting. And I also wanted to say the 25th, that's when Mars is square Pluto. That's not a fun aspect. Usually there can be that's a conflict aspect.
Right.
And the sun is also square the nodes that day. So I think that adds a layer of significance to what the Mars and Pluto might bring.
Save your complex conversations for a different day.
Sure. And if people, like when I'm seeing somebody and they're having that natively between, their chart and the transit, I always say, just be more aware, be mindful, pay attention. Don't take unnecessary risks. So as a collective, I'm saying, the 24th, 25th, just kind of keep that in mind for sure.
Yeah. And it has been interesting to see how folks have responded to Aries, because knowing that it was just going to be hammering everyone, I think gave kind of a way to view it that was less contentious, I would say. Yeah,
absolutely. The beauty of Aries is that it doesn't hold on.
Yeah, I love that.
It is one of the gifts for sure. And then after all of that, we close the month with a full moon on the 31st.
Yeah.
And that's at 9 degrees Sag, 9:55. So we already talked a bit about blue moons happen every 2.5 to 3 years. I had just made a note here that with the month opening with the waxing gibbous moon, there's the color of the tension, adjusting, waiting for an axe to fall energy. And then the second full moon ends that feeling, but then there's the cleanup.
Right.
That will spill into June.
That's right.
Yeah. And so that's sort of like the month doesn't really resolve. It literally feels to me like a spilling of, like, we had too much garbage to deal with in May. It's going to
there's like a skid, and then that's May.
Yeah, for sure. I heard Rob Hand refer to that full moon as the flower moon. And I thought he was referring to that one. It could be either one, because apparently that's just the most, like, literally It's a astronomical term for when we are at that blooming stage.
I love
Yeah,
that.
it's not. I thought it was so strange that he used it because it sounded like one of those like wolf moon, ruby-eyed jaguar moon. You know, like those ones that you see.
I do. Yeah.
So I went looking for it because I'm like, why did he
Okay.
bring that up? So yes, apparently the flower moon is strictly based on the season that we're in, and that it's spring and everything is in bloom. So
Agriculture and astrology, just like that.
100%, exactly. So did you have anything else to say about the astrology before we get into our messages to each sign? We're going to do this in elements because we each drew elements. So how about we start with fire? You go first.
That sounds great. So the cards I chose this time are Ibrahim Baba Oracle cards. They're beautiful. So folks would have to ask to get access to how to purchase them, but I certainly recommend them. They're quite lovely. So Aries, do not be distracted by others on the path. It is important to return to the path this month. So if you are keeping a steady vision, there may be some interruptions this month, but stay focused. For Leo, our next fire sign, Bodies Matter 13 is the card, and it is a regeneration revolution, which I love. It's sort of find all the yummy things you love about your body, Leo. And if you can, get that audience to be like, what? You're amazing, because you deserve it. That's what this month's about. And then for Sagittarius, our destinies are joined together. And so I love that notion of the sort of funny philosopher finding a place to belong when they're generally a wanderer.
Oh, I love that. That's beautiful. I'll do Earth now. Since Taurus comes after Aries. Anyway, so I use the activations, sacred geometry activations cards. I love them. And the wildest thing happened. You know, we each drew 6 cards for 6 signs. And out of my 6 cards, 5 of them were the flower of life, some version of the flower of life. And 5 of them, the same 5, had some kind of a 7 in the number of the card. Wow. So that, to me, when you get like that kind of ratio, there's something important in that, right?
Yeah.
So Taurus got the card passion. And so the message that I generated out of that was, so ask yourself, what am I passionate about? It's time for you to reconnect to something that lights that fire and stay with it long enough to understand that what it's trying to show you, not just what it's making you feel. So there's a truth in the heart of that passion about who you are. And this right now is the time for you to reconnect with that. Yummy. So I love that, especially since this is their solar return time. Yeah. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then for Virgo, I drew crown chakra. And it's so funny because I always associate Pisces with that chakra, and that's the opposite of Virgo. And the card is shown as a violet flower of life. And the beauty of this for Virgo is that the flower of life shows the perfect harmony of the universe, demonstrating how all the small pieces fit together in perfect harmony, creating this beautiful system as a whole, which is something that Virgo can sometimes really forget, right?
Right.
So this is a message for Virgo to revisit or start a regular practice of connecting to source, especially if you're having trouble seeing that bigger harmonious picture. A regular sort of any kind of spiritual practice will be really helpful for getting Virgo out of that smaller pieces, getting really dissecty with how they look at things.
Beautiful.
For sure. And then Capricorn, the card was realization. And this is about becoming fully aware of the heart-centered truth. So the external process of becoming the most whole expression of yourself in the world. And realizing that when you embody the expression of the creative source, that creativity that comes through us rather than from us, you have the power to make things real, right? But it's going to be more impactful if it's coming from that heart source instead of what you think you're supposed to be.
That's really tasty, which feels appropriate for the earth signs.
Yeah, and the advice is, so ask yourself, what you want to accomplish, ask it from your heart center. Don't look outside yourself, don't overthink it, but connect with that heart chakra and then ask yourself, what is it you want to accomplish?
I love that.
So now you do air.
So I'm going to start with Aquarius. Sorry, guys. The notes that I got were it's the role of the historian is important for creating the future because you want to pluck the best things from the past. And so there's a sense that Aquarius will go back this month. And I think we touched on that in a couple of ways, that of the places where you're going to see something, this is going to be especially, I think, helpful for you. So remember that it's here to help, not to be a problem. Gemini, there was a really beautiful note about touching into compassion for folks who have been lost during a struggle, and to remember to carry that struggle forward. So we've talked about how there's this intensity and unintended consequences, and there's kind of this pressure and all of these different angles. And so what Gemini is being asked to do is to sustain themselves through it.
Very cool.
And then for Libra, there was a call for ancestors to come back and help. So to call on your ancestors, if it's your ascendant or your sun for Libra, they're here this month.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And I also say for anybody, if you have a strong placement, like,
right.
So for me, I've got, stellium and Libra. So just
Legit.
kind of pick whichever one you resonate with, right? Yeah. Like if one of these messages stands out more, go with that. That's how I look at it anyways.
Yeah.
So last but never least is the water. And I pulled compassion for Cancer as well. So isn't that interesting that we got two compassion messages? So the compassion card speaks to Cancer's ability to stand with others without judgment, reconnect with what unconditional feels like, and then spread it around without giving all of yourself away. So there's two pretty important messages there.
Yeah.
Try to leave judgment behind and try not to give all of yourself away to people. This isn't about fixing anyone's problem, but being with them without either of you succumbing to the urge to fix it. And if it's you that needs your compassion, start there. Self-compassion is a powerful balm. And then Scorpio, I pulled emergence. There's the potential for something coming forward in you that's new. That's interesting for Scorpio, hey?
Yeah.
A part of yourself that might feel like a stranger. Emergence suggests you see this with childlike wonder and curiosity. So new might feel scary, but this is an existing part of yourself, and stepping into it means an even more whole sense of the authenticity you so value. If you want to initiate this on your own terms, start asking yourself, when I grew up, I wanted to be fill in the blank. How are you doing with that now? Where has that played out in your life? So I thought kind of like somebody who wanted to be a firefighter. It's like, how are you helping people? Because really or how are you a hero? Because maybe that was the attraction.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
So sort of figure out how you've implemented that in your life. And if you're not, how could you? Right? What do you need to do to actually honor that thing? And then for Pisces, so Pisces, oddly enough, is the only one that didn't get the flower of life. The card is dynamic and it's a triangle. It's three-sided, and it's the complete opposite to the Virgo card. It's the actually putting the pieces out, in deconstructing and putting the pieces out into the world. As the opposite sign to Virgo, Pisces got the other side of the coin when it comes to the cards. Dynamic speaks to the act of taking different elements that make up life and the universe and putting them together in the most harmonious arrangement.
Wow.
This card says that if you have something stuck in your life, get moving, get your heart pumping, do something that makes you feel alive, right? So then revisit it and see from a new perspective, right? How you can unstick it. So it's not about, I'm not saying go out, get exercise, whatever, but do something that actually gets you energized and then think about it.
I love that.
And examine it. Because feeling stuck and then trying to unstick is never going to work. And this could definitely clear the way for new avenues of inquiry or action for Pisces. So excellent. That was fun.
And I love how all of them sort of addressed, there may be sticky bits. So here's, Leo is in the body, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was really fun.
cool.
Yay.
Very cool.
And next week we're going to talk about?
We're talking about Pluto. It's all about Pluto. And then we're also going to talk a bit about how the outer planets can tell our birth story.
I love that.
And how Pluto fits into that. So it's going to be an interesting episode for sure. Yeah. So thank you, Lillian. And I'm going to say to everybody, good luck. I mean, I feel like April was a lot. Yeah. And maybe is not as much. Right. So I want to make that clear.
Let yourself take breaks this month.
Yes. They're built in. They're literally with those void of course moves. And that's the reason why we're sharing them is like, don't spin your wheels on those days.
Like nothing, like what's going on? This must be one of those days to go take a walk.
Don't. Yeah. We scheduled a production meeting on the void of course moon on Monday.
And then we rescheduled it for the next day.
For the next day. It was just a really nice conversation that didn't lead anywhere.
But like a 5-minute dance party, right? We're not saying don't be realistic. We're just saying like allow things to shake out.
Have a wonderful week and we will see you next week.
And thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks.